And we described how davening can be divided into 4 sections. There's the beginning, the first section where we sing verses of song, sing his praise, Psukei to Dzimra. And that takes us from the beginning of the formal part of davening, which starts with Baruch She'amar, up until Yishtabach. Then we have the next section of davening, which is the Shema and its blessings. And that we have blessings that come before the Shema and after the Shema. Then we have the Amidah, and then lots of other concluding prayers. So this is a total of 13 sections on prayer. So please God, today we will conclude the first of those sections, which speaks about verses on song, and we'll move on to the next in-between zone, which is really for verses of song, you don't have to have a minyan, meaning that although there is a Kadish at the beginning of davening, that's not an absolute requirement. And really the first time one needs to have the minyan present, the first point of davening one needs to have the minyan present is in order to say the Barchu and the Kadish, or in the reverse order, the Kadish and the Barchu, that comes just before the section of the Shema and the blessings that surround it. So we'll finish up talking about Psukei to Dzimra, the verses of song, and then we'll move on to the Kadish, answering Barchu, and a couple of pointers which are quite relevant as far as keeping the minyan together. And please God, by us learning these laws, we'll come to actually see them in real life very soon. So we spoke about how one shouldn't speak from the moment they begin Baruch She'amar, unless it's to answer Amen. It should be said word by word with concentration, like one is counting jewels in a joyful demeanor. We need to make sure to stay clean, meaning as far as our hands not touching, picking anywhere that they shouldn't be. In general, it's a good thing, but during this time of davening, it's an absolute requirement. If one does touch their ears, their nose, and what they actually are required to wash their hands. I spoke about there are sections when you stand and sections when we sit. We went through that quickly because that's clearly in the Siddur. And then there's a prayer which comes a little after the Baruch She'amar, which is Mizmor L'Soida, or Mizmor L'Todah, where we thank Hashem, and that replaces a thanks offering that was brought in the temple. It's a special psalm. However, it's only recited on days when that particular offering was able to be brought in the temple, which would be on weekdays, not on Shabbos, and not just before Pesach, and not just before Yom Kippur. And now we're up to the last 3 halachos, which speak about running late. What happens if you come late? Not that it would ever happen to any of those present, but just theoretically speaking, present company excluded, what happens if you came late to shul? So he goes through a whole process of what can be skipped. And again, I'm not expecting you to remember this all from reading it inside, but you do know where it is in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. However, I did put out a little bit of a table I prepared of really the most important things to bear in mind. So let's first read section 6, then we'll look at the slide on the left, and then we'll move on to section 7 and 8. So if you did not arrive at shul until after the congregation had begun to pray, and if you pray in the proper order, you will not manage to recite Shmoneh Esrei or the Amidah together with the Minyan. And whereas the main objective is that one should daven the Amidah, the Shmoneh Esrei, together with the Minyan. So what do? So he says you may therefore omit part of Psukei to Dzimra, that first section that we've been speaking about, as will soon be explained. However, in any circumstance, the bracha al netilas yadayim that we say when washing our hands in the morning, usually done at home, the bracha of the Torah, which could also be done at home, which Jeff does at shul, otherwise everybody says it on their own, and Elokai neshama, which is thanking Hashem for returning our soul to us. It's beyond the Modeh, there's a special bracha to thank Hashem for returning our neshama. These must always be said before davening. Therefore, if you do not say them at home, you must say them in shul, even if as a result you will lag behind and be unable to daven Shmoneh Esrei, the Amidah, together with the Minyan. He says also Kriyas Shema, the Shema, with its brachos, which are said during the morning prayers, must be said before the Amidah. You cannot skip them out. That is, you must begin with the bracha Yotzei Ar and continue all the way until the Shema, all the way until the Amidah. However, the rest of the brachos, the rest of the order in Psukei Dzimra can be said after Shemona Esrei. You would have to skip Baruch She'amar and Yishlach. So this may sound quite technical because we've just ran through a dozen or more prayers. So let's take a look at the slides. So firstly, if we go back and we see that there are these 4 sections of davening, what he's saying in simple words is that if you come to shul late, you could skip out the first section called Psukei Dzimra and go straight from the next section, which is the Shema and its blessings. That way, you'll still be able to daven Amidah with the Minyan. However, he points out that there are some morning blessings that come even Psukei Dzimra, before Psukei Dzimra, the verses of song, which we spoke about a few weeks ago. All those morning blessings as you're getting up and thanking Hashem for all of the different steps of the day, that you could open your eyes, that you could sit, that you could stand, that you could walk. So of those blessings, he says there are a few that are also an absolute requirement. And what are they? The first blessing on the Tilat Yadayim, the blessing on the Torah, the blessing after coming from the bathroom, thanking Hashem for returning on the Shabbat, and the blessing on the Torah. So these 4 blessings that I'm depicting over here in the slideshow, they must be said. You can't skip them out. They come before you move on to the rest of davening. And then obviously you'd put on your talis and tefillin for davening, and you'd make a bracha on that too. And then you say that you would be able to skip out the Psukei Dzimra. However, although he doesn't say it here in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it is worth mentioning that the author of the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the original Shulchan Aruch, was told by his Maggid, by his teacher, that he should never skip any prayers. Why? Because the order of davening is according to Kabbalah, and when one skips, it interferes with the pipelines of all the brachas. And based on that, the Mishnah Brura, the Chafetz Chaim, rules that many daven in order, even if they come late to shul, and even if it means that they're not going to be able to daven the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah, together with the Minyan. Others maintain, continues the Mishnah Brura, that the power of a Minyan overrides the above mentioned, and accordingly, one should skip to daven with the Amidah with the Minyan. So what we have over here is actually in different communities, we have different practices as far as whether one should or should not skip in order to keep up with the Minyan. So in Hasidic communities, for example, we never skip. We say everything in order. In Ashkenazi shuls, most Ashkenazi communities give more weight to the Minyan and would actually skip if somebody came late to shul, although he is losing out on the Kabbalistic dimension of the order of the prayers. At the same time, he is gaining the advantage of davening with the Minyan. So this is an interesting example where in different communities there's different practices, and the reason is they both Ashkenazi and Hasidic communities agree that davening with the Minyan is important, and they both agree that davening in order is important. The only difference is what's more important. And some say it's more important to daven the Amidah with the Minyan, and some say it's more important to daven in order. Okay.
What is the Chabad ruling?
So the Chabad community, we never skip.
Okay.
In Ashkenazi communities, generally, one may skip, may still vary in different communities. I haven't done extensive research on that. However, it's worth mentioning that this is all after the fact if you accidentally came late. But one should never plan on skipping. And I would say, even according to Ashkenazi communities, if a person on a regular basis is only able to get to shul at a certain time, and certainly if he comes on time, but it takes him much longer to daven, then there's certainly room to say he should rather daven in order, even if it means he's not going to be able to daven the Amidah together with the Minyan. Okay, that was an introduction, which is worth bearing in mind, that we certainly discourage skipping, but sometimes this is what is done. Now, as far as what we skip, I discovered actually a difference of opinion between the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, whose work we are reading, and another halachic authority, the Mishnah Brura. And I've put down in my slideshow, according to the Mishnah Brura, the bottom line. The bottom line is that after saying these 4 morning blessings, Al Netilat Yadayim, for washing our hands, Asher Yatzar, for going to the bathroom, and Lakai Shabbat, thanking Hashem for Al Shabbat, and blessings of the Torah, which is actually, that blessing of the Torah has a total of 3 blessings within it. Then one puts on one's talis and tefillin. And the Mishnah Brura says, actually, one should never skip Baruch She'amar, one should never skip Ashrei, and one should never skip Yishtabach, which is really the core of Psukei Dzimra. And I think the reason he mentions this is because if one were to skip Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach, one would actually not be able to make it up afterwards. As opposed to all of the other prayers, one would be able to make them up after davening. So that's sometimes what people will do when they come late to shul. They will skip out a lot of the sections of Psukei Dzimra so that they could stay with the Minyan. And after the Minyan has finished, they will go back and catch up the sections that they missed. It's also worth mentioning over here that this is referring to somebody who has begun to pray. He's already been praying for long enough that he's familiar with all the prayers. And now the question is just what to say when. As far as those of us that are just beginning on this journey and slowly learning more and more each day, then it's not a matter of skipping. It's a matter of adding, quite the contrary. Somebody who doesn't daven at all, you're not going to tell them you must now daven everything because that's not manageable. Rather, if he just does 2 prayers, 3 prayers, he's not skipping the rest, but on the contrary, he's actually adding. Instead of doing nothing, he's doing something, and that would be praiseworthy. So different levels of people that have joined the class. I guess this is something that the conversation could continue as far as what each person should do, as far as having a personalized davening plan, which is something I speak a lot about. Everybody that comes to shul should have a personalized davening plan, meaning they need to have a plan of what they will do when they come to shul instead of being overwhelmed by everything that's taking place around them, especially those that are beginning on the journey. So let's just run through the text inside. I'm going to do it very quickly because it's a lot of prayers over here. In fact, you know what? You could read it in your own time. I don't expect anybody to remember all of the different prayers, but he basically goes through all the different prayers and says which ones one should skip, which ones one shouldn't skip. So that's here in chapter 14 of the Shulchan Aruch and Halacha 7. But I've simplified it in the chart on the left, which is I've listed the 4 main morning blessings which must be recited. And of the verses of song, the 3 sections that the Mishnah Brura says should regardless be recited, Baruch She'amar, Ashrei, and Yishtabach. And I've mentioned that some actually don't skip at all, even if it means losing out on davening the Amidah with the Minyan. Okay, and then on a similar note, he says in section 8 that if somebody arrives at the shul and the congregation began davening and he's worried that by the time he finishes putting on his talis and tefillin, again, he's going to fall behind. So then use the same principles that were mentioned before, meaning put on your talis and tefillin, and then, or he says actually, if somebody only is planning on they're waiting for the talis and tefillin to arrive, and they're only planning on putting on the talis and tefillin just before Barchu, after Yishtabach, so they might want to stop or skip a little bit before so that they don't fall behind on the more important sections. So that is as far as skipping. I've gone through it rather quickly because I feel that I'm not sure if going through it slowly, you're all going to remember all these details. At least you know that it's here in section 14, where you could come back to if you come late to shul. But I've outlined the most important prayers that one should never skip. And now we move on to a new section, our last 2 minutes that we have, which is, so we've concluded. Let's get rid of this. We've concluded the that deals with verses of song, and now we move on to the Kadish, which comes right after that. And then when everybody says Barchu, and we'll speak about the importance of a Minyan in general. So again, just to see where we're at in the whole Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, we're in the section of davening, which comes after starting the day. We spoke about starting the day, and now within davening, we're going through the different sections, and we've moved on to section 15, which comes after the first of 4 sections of davening, which are the verses of song. We are now about to get ready for the blessings of the Shema and the Shema, and this is where we must have a Minyan in place. Otherwise, we will lose out on being able to daven with a Minyan. So this is where we will be speaking about the laws of a minyan, as well as the laws of answering Kadish and the laws of answering Barchu. Okay, so we'll do just the first halacha today, time permitting, and please God, continue tomorrow. So he says, after completing Yishtabach, Shimcha, La'ad, Malkeino, the Chazan says what's called a half Kaddish. It's a short Kaddish. And he points out that Kadish, Barchu, and Kedusha, which is said in the repetition of the Amidah, or the repetition of the Amidah, cannot be said without a minyan. Neither the Torah can also not be read unless there are 10 adult Jewish men present. If 10 men were not present when Yishtabach was said, and then the minyan came afterwards, so the Chazan would not actually be able to say Kaddish, because the Kaddish could only be said after prayers were already done together with the minyan. So since the minyan only showed up after Yishtabach, there wasn't a minyan for that. So then what he would actually need to do is say another few verses together with the minyan and only then say Kaddish. But he says, therefore, the minyan should wait. If they're waiting for the minyan, they should wait before saying Yishtabach till the minyan arrives, till the 10th man arrives, and then everybody says Yishtabach together. And one may not speak at this point. So it's quite, again, we spoke about this earlier, we're not allowed to speak from Baruch Shamar till the end of the Amidah. So you're sitting around, he says you could wait for up to about half an hour, because that's how long the first section of davening Psukei Dzimra could take. You could wait up to that amount of time for the minyan. So imagine half an hour, no talking, and then proceed with Yishtabach and Kadish and Barchu. He says, don't wait for more than half an hour before Yishtabach, rather say Yishtabach, and then you would be able to continue to wait. When 10 men arrive, if you've already said Yishtabach, you can say a few verses of Tehillim, and then continue with the davening. So today we discussed moving on to Kadish and Barchu and a minyan, that at what point is a minyan required, basically from Yishtabach, and one could wait up to half an hour before Yishtabach or even longer after Yishtabach, and one shouldn't speak in the meantime. Tomorrow we'll continue to discuss who qualifies for a minyan and how we count the minyan and where the minyan should be present, a whole lot of things about the minyan. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us and have a wonderful evening.